It was the worst day.
It took us losing sight of him momentarily to lose him forever.
I was planning her 2-year-old birthday party. I ended up planning a funeral.
All it takes is a little bit of water and a face, and drowning can happen.
It's my job now to tell families, this could be you.
What we are currently doing isn't working.
We maybe weren't doing everything that we could do to help prevent drowning for kids.
Swim lessons, the ability to save yourself in water, it's the layer we would have brought with us.
And it's what gave us her back.
Maybe someone will listen. Maybe their outcome will change.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for a WVLT News special presentation, Prevent the Tragedy, Drowning Dangers. I'm Brittany Tarwater. The #1 cause of death for children ages 1 to 4 is drowning.
Levi, he was our third child, and we really thought he was going to be our last one. We thought we always wanted 3 kids. And he was such a boy. They say, "Rah!"
3-year-old Levi Hughes drowned 2 years ago on a summer vacation with his East Tennessee family. Now his parents, Nicole and Jonathan, are creating nationwide change to save the lives of other children.
Yay, I get another piece.
The wins in life
It says draw.
are so sweet,
It would be so sweet.
but the losses,
It's a good mom. It's a emotion.
How would it be? How would it be different? And I wish it was. Levi, he was our third child, and we really thought he was going to be our last one. We thought we always wanted 3 kids. And he was such a boy. I mean, he was, he was so silly.
3-year-old Levi Hughes looked forward to their family's favorite week of the year, an annual beach trip with 5 other families to Alabama.
Levi has been as a 2-month-old, a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, and then he spent his final days as a 3-year-old on these beaches with these friends.
It was the night of their yearly crab hunt, the night the kids waited for all year long.
And my husband, picked him up and shook him and upside down like he would always do to him. And he said, "How many crabs are we going to catch tonight?" And Levi giggled. He said, "So many, Dad." And I gave Levi like a bowl of Cheetos, and I split this brownie. I put half of the brownie in his bowl and kind of ruffled his hair and turned to just like throw the bowl away.
In seconds, Levi was gone.
And he was in the pool. And every time, and it's been 2 years, it's still a shock. And I always think that maybe the story will end differently, but it doesn't.
That same day, on the other side of the country, Olympic skier Bodie Miller and his wife Morgan's 1.5-year-old daughter Emmeline drowned in their California neighbor's pool. In seconds, she was gone. The same pain that ripped their hearts apart is also bringing these 2 families together. The Hughes and the Millers started working together to bring drowning to the front of the national conversation. They teamed up with the American Academy of Pediatrics, creating new public service announcements focused on the importance of water safety.
I ran outside and saw Emmy in the pool. We couldn't save her. As a mom, I want other parents to know how fast drowning can happen.
We believe it should be the #1 thing parents talk about when it comes to safety.
Making sure parents know, aside from birth defects, drowning is the #1 cause of death for children ages 1 to 4.
Happy birthday to you.
My son Levi was so proud to turn 3, but he will never get the chance to turn 4. I'm Nicole Hughes, Levi's mom.
They worked with Dr. Ben Hoffman with the AAP, who calls drowning a public health crisis.
Anything that takes the life of more 1 to 4-year-olds than anything else is a public health crisis, especially when they're all preventable.
Together, the Hughes, the Millers, and the AAP rewrote national safe swimming policies that hadn't been updated in 10 years.
We maybe weren't doing everything that we could do to help prevent drowning for kids. We were able to use their voice to both elevate the problem within the AAP to be able to get a policy statement done in 6 months, which is like that had never been done before.
Ready? Let's try it.
The new policy suggests children as young as 1 start swim lessons, the youngest the AAP has ever recommended. Research shows children who take consistent swim lessons are 88% less likely to drown.
With Levi, my husband and I purposely decided just 6 weeks before he drowned that we were going to wait until he was ready for swim lessons. So the missing layer for him was his ability to survive in water. It's the layer we would have brought with us.
Hughes says her pediatrician never talked to her about drowning dangers and never asked if any of her children knew how to swim. The new policy now recommends that conversation happen during checkups. A conversation Sophia Brise wishes her daughter Soraya's pediatrician would have had with her.
I was one of the parents that always thought it couldn't happen to me.
It was a Sunday afternoon at a relative's house for dinner.
I hear the loudest gut-wrenching scream that no one should have to hear.
Soraya was 2 weeks away from her 2nd birthday.
When it happened, I was planning her 2-year-old birthday party. So I ended up planning a funeral. Would you rather have a funeral for a child or pay for someone?
She says no one ever told her her daughter was more likely to die from drowning than anything else.
I wish it was a conversation. You know, the one thing I always remember is the seat. You would always say to me, remember, don't face her around yet. And I'm like, okay, I won't. So I wish water safety is part of that.
Pediatricians talking to parents about water safety and suggesting swim lessons begin at 1-year-old is now part of the national guidelines. It's not required, but it is recommended doctors adopt the policy. Just a year after losing Levi, the Hughes welcomed baby Willow into their family. When she turned 8 months old, she started swim lessons, learning to roll onto her back, to float, and breathe.
It was just so empowering. It was awesome. I mean, of course, it was just the gut punch over and over that if she was this capable at 8 months, you know, what could my son have done at age 3? And just wishing I had known that for him and hating that he had to be the sacrifice.
Within weeks of Levi's death, his parents started Levi's legacy, encouraging families to appoint a water guardian, even when children are not swimming but have access to water. Dr. Ben Hoffman calls drowning a public health crisis, taking the lives of 800 children every year. That's 13 per week. A standard school bus holds 72 kids. Over the course of a year, that's 9 school buses worth of children who die from drowning.
If we were losing 9 school buses of kids to school buses, there would be some fundamental change in school buses.
Drowning is already the leading killer of our children, and this year could be even worse. The pandemic brings with it extra threats that parents should prepare for.
Have you seen an increase in drowning since the stay-at-home orders went into place?
Yeah, sadly, yes. From Florida, the reports are that drowning is up about 100. It's doubled. It's up 100%.
With more people staying home during COVID-19, market research firm the NPD Group reports swimming pool sales are up 161% nationwide compared to last year, meaning more kids have access to water.
I think parents and caregivers' ability to provide that constant, capable supervision is going to be complicated just because it's so constant and unrelenting. So I think the issue of providing barriers to access to water is going to be more important than it's ever been before.
Andrea Montoya was in the process of installing a fence around her backyard pool. But because of the pandemic, she says the company told her they couldn't come. The next week, her 14-month-old son Silas escaped their home through the doggy door and drowned.
Nobody should wait a single day to install a pool fence if your home has a pool. It's the only physical barrier between your home and that pool. It took us losing sight of him momentarily in our own home to lose them forever. Every second could mean their life.
I've been a swimmer my whole life. I learned to swim as a child, and I ended my career as an All-American at the University of Tennessee. My husband is an Olympic gold medalist in swimming. We love the water, we really do, and water will always be a part of our lives. But there are risks. On top of all the fears and concerns I already have as a new mother, I want to know how I can protect my own child in the water, because even as a swimmer, I didn't know all the risks. The American Academy of Pediatrics, Dr. Ben Hoffman, told me a child around water should be thought of like a child sitting next to a lion. What I've learned from talking with parents and experts all across the country, I'm sharing with you.
Water represents a constant threat to a child, and you can't drown-proof a kid.
What products do we buy, and how do we know they're safe?
This is not a protective device, that's a toy.
The products you may think are safe could be doing more harm than good. What to buy when Prevent the Tragedy returns. Drowning doesn't happen like we may think. There's rarely splashing and yelling for help. It's silent, and it can happen in a matter of seconds. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports 10 people are dying from drowning every day. A quarter of them are children. Most child drownings happen like Deborah Blizzard's 2.5-year-old granddaughter Brooklyn, in a backyard pool.
It was the worst day. My daughter Holly and her had come home and they were outside playing. Brooklyn wanted to go swimming.
But Brooklyn didn't know how to swim. She was told to wait until after a nap to go in the water. Her family says Brooklyn unlocked 2 deadbolts while her mother was sleeping to get to the pool.
She was underneath the float.
Brooklyn died that day 2 years ago.
We miss her so much. But I know she's watching us.
Like Brooklyn, the AAP says 70% of child drownings happen when children are not expected to be in the water.
For parents to make sure that not only is the water, that if the child is around the water that they can't get in it, but that kids can't get to the water outside of the house when they're not supposed to be.
Nothing can drown-proof your child, but there are layers of protection the AAP recommends you use to be proactive. Always wear a life jacket on the open water. But don't only rely on flotation devices for protection. Check for 4-sided fences around pools with latches that lock high enough to be out of reach for children. Pool alarms are required by law in Tennessee in pools built since 2011. There are alarms to monitor movement that stay in the pool and alarms that go off when a door opens. Don't store toys in the pool. They can tempt young children to jump in. Consistent, quality swim lessons are proven to make children nearly 90% less likely to drown. Designate a water guardian who knows CPR. That person should never, even for a moment, leave children unattended around water. Emily and Jordan Frisky say it's CPR that saved their daughter's life.
I just kept going, this is not happening to us. This isn't happening to us.
Emily Frisky replays the moment in her mind. Just moments before were like any other day.
Doing regular, work at home type things.
Emily and her husband Jordan have 2 young girls, 2.5-year-old Adelaide and 1-year-old Josephina.
Josephina crawls around to kind of around the couch and by the back door, and I noticed the back door was open.
Adelaide was in the pool.
I see her floating in the shallow end. And she's not struggling, she's not breathing, she's not responsive, she's blue.
Emily, a former EMT, started CPR. She and Jordan took turns for 12 minutes doing CPR and calling for help.
Her body was like rubber. There was no life, nothing. And so I'm just doing CPR.
Doctors at the hospital worked to revive her. Addie went without a pulse for more than 20 minutes until finally,
we got a pulse back and she's breathing. And we just fell to the ground and we thanked God.
Are you big girl? Yeah, you're big girl, huh?
Doctors told Emily and Jordan it was CPR that saved their daughter's life.
She goes, if she had not gotten CPR so quickly and so effectively, we would be looking at a different outcome.
Now, Emily and Jordan are using their story to urge other parents to learn CPR.
CPR is what saved our daughter's life, and it's what gave us her back.
Emily and Jordan say Addie is back to her old self, but they know she's one of the lucky ones. East Tennessee Children's Hospital usually treats 50 children per year for serious but not deadly drownings. Drowning doesn't just happen in swimming pools and open water. All it takes is a few inches of water.
We've always known that buckets and toilets and bathtubs are a threat. We've known that little plastic wading pools in the backyard can be a threat. All it takes is a little bit of water and a face, and drowning can happen. It happens very quickly, matter of seconds.
The National Drowning Prevention Alliance calls drowning preventable. So how do we protect our children when we know they're swimming? What products do we buy? And how do we know they're safe? Blow-up swim wings and inflatables are not U.S. Coast Guard approved safety devices. Dr. Ben Hoffman says they can easily deflate and kids can take them off.
Anything that inflates is not a protective device, that's a toy. Anything that's Coast Guard approved is going to have a label that states that. So thinking about that, especially for those younger, more impulsive kids, or for older kids who may be taking risks or may not be able to really swim to the degree that they would need to protect themselves.
Even some foam products are not proper safety devices. If a product is U.S. Coast Guard approved, you'll see the mark that looks like this. And remember, nothing replaces supervision. It's not just young children in danger of drowning. What's putting our teens in danger?
Maybe someone will listen. Maybe their outcome will change.
And are some children more likely to drown than others, especially during COVID-19?
There's already a tremendous amount of inequity and disparity in terms of access to swim lessons.
When Prevent the Tragedy returns. While most young children and babies drown in swimming pools, our teenagers are most at risk on the open water. The AAP claims drowning as the second leading cause of death in teenagers, behind only car crashes. Last summer, 13-year-old Alexis Shirley died when she drowned at Perry's Mill Dam. Her mom, Renee Ritchie, says she slipped on a rock and the current of the dam pulled her under.
Your world can literally turn upside down in a matter of minutes. You think you're just going to have a fun day, and then next thing you know, your whole world is completely different.
Ritchie convinced the state to put up these warning signs for swimmers.
Maybe someone will listen. Maybe their outcome will change.
Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency reports in 2019, 13 people died on Tennessee waterways. As a lifelong swimmer myself, I've seen how currents can change, view is limited, and oftentimes distance on the open water appears much closer than it actually is.
It's not the same as a pool. Most of the time you have a lifeguard on duty, you have someone there watching you, and you also don't have the currents and the temperature changes and the obstacles that can be floating in an uncontrolled body of water.
Knox County Rescue Squad's John Whited says it's important to know your personal limits on the open water. Connor Gage's mom, Dana, is urging people to wear life jackets on the open water after her 15-year-old son drowned on a Texas lake.
That was the day our very happy family of 4 turned into a very broken family of 3.
Connor was not wearing a life jacket when he jumped off a dock at a friend's birthday party.
It's my job now to tell moms, to tell families, this could be you. It is 100% preventable. And when you're talking about open water, it's life jackets. It's a buoyancy device that will keep you safe. You know, just like you buckle up in the car, you got to buckle up at the lake.
The AAP calls drowning a public health crisis. But there are some people who are more likely to drown than others. And this year could be even worse.
There's already a tremendous amount of inequity and disparity in terms of access to swim lessons. And I think we're going to see that magnified this summer.
Drowning does not discriminate, but there are some people who are at a higher risk. The CDC reports Blacks and Hispanics are 5 times more likely to die from drowning than whites. 80% of people who drown are boys. And parents who don't know how to swim are much less likely to teach their children.
Swimming pool deaths tend to happen more for white kids, and for the 15 to 19-year-olds, it tend to be males, and especially African-American males, and that's really related to the lack of swim lessons. And trying to highlight this idea that swim lessons should be considered part of anybody's toolkit. Being able to protect yourself in the water is really an essential life skill.
When we come back, safe swimming for life.
It's the ability to survive in water. It is the common thread across every toddler drowning.
Nothing has proven more effective to prepare your child to be safe around water than swim lessons. We're back with how to pick the best lessons for your family when Prevent the Tragedy returns.
It is truly a safety element. So think of your kids riding a bike without a helmet. That's just like going to the pool without swim lessons.
USA Swimming reports continuous quality swim lessons make a child 88% less likely to drown. So when should your child start lessons? How do you pick the best ones for your family? And are they safe during COVID-19? The CDC says water properly treated with chlorine or bromine should inactivate the virus. When it comes to choosing the right lessons for your family, do some research to pick the best one. You may have heard of ISR, or Infant Swimming Resource. It's also called self-rescue or survival swim lessons. ISR can begin as early as 6 months, submerges a child underwater, and teaches a repetitive movement of flipping over to float on their back and wait for rescue. Traditional lessons can also begin as early as 6 months. Children learn fundamental survival skills like rolling to float on their backs and fronts at a pace that challenges the child while gaining confidence in the water. They also learn key skills like holding their breath, blowing bubbles, and kicking. These lessons teach proper swimming techniques that lead to learning strokes. The AAP recommends children begin lessons as early as 1.
What will be with them for the rest of their lives, and that is the ability to swim. I mean, it goes so beyond just doing it to be able to save your toddler, but God, that should be reason enough.
Of all the families I've talked to, the thread weaving their stories together is hope.
This is a problem we can fix.
Hope for the future.
Because the better we do, the fewer kids are going to drown.
Hoping their own children are making the world a safer place.
And it could be the greatest gift to give your child.
It's the best investment that you can make for your child.
Hoping to prevent the next tragedy.
We can reduce the numbers, and hopefully we can make this a thing of non-existence.
Thank you for joining us for this important conversation. By listening, you are already a part of the solution.